We gotta start making it better.
Oh, it's a nice room, huh? Have you seen this? Have you seen the facility?
I have had just the chance to take a couple of tours through this at various stages because, as you know, we were involved in this, and it's unbelievable what they're going to do here for the arts and the Philharmonic. Absolutely. There's already been lift from it, Governor.
All right, good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all. Thank you so much. We're so pleased to be in Westerly. My name is Stephen Pryor. I serve as the Governor and Lieutenant Governor's Commerce Secretary for Rhode Island, and we're so pleased to have this fourth session regarding the draft Rhode Island 2030 plan. Governor McKee, Lieutenant Governor Matos, and multiple members of the cabinet are here to hear from you. And this has been a process where we've compiled information from across the state digitally through community conversations that were held online via Facebook Live. And now we're out with a draft and we're ready to discuss with you live and in person. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Governor McKee to come up and kick us off, and then we're going to get on with the program. Governor, thank you so much for convening us.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Thank you, everybody. It's always great to be here in Westerly. Hi, Rep. How you doing? Good to see you. And tonight is no exception to that. Certainly being here at the United Theater, it's what an accomplishment for the community. And I know that many people who are leaders here, from the council to our reps and senators down here, have really stood up and made this a fabulous venue. So congratulations to you. And tonight I'm joined by our Lieutenant Governor, Sabina Matos, and she's been the sidekick with our Secretary of Commerce, Stephen Pryor, to run about 13 different virtual meetings. And the idea was to make each one about a specific topic that is important to the future of the state of Rhode Island, in the hopes that we can put a Rhode Island 2030 plan together. And so we have put a draft, and that's what Stefan's going to talk to you about tonight. But it's a working document right now. And the reason to have these public sessions is to get input about things that are important to you, using the current draft as a model that we can work off of, right? So I think that we're here in a really good spot. We're going to have a recovery on the pandemic. We are going to be getting into a ramp down strategy very shortly. With Rhode Island having over 92% of the adults with one shot in the arm in the state of Rhode Island. Thank you so much for responding the way you have. With over 72% now, close to 72% with fully vaccinated in the state, has really launched our ability to reopen our economy in a way where now I think that we're third in the country this week in reopening our economy, and first in the Northeast New England states. So it puts us in a spot where we can start thinking about Rhode Island 2030, and what does that mean to you, and what does that mean to the people who live in the state of Rhode Island? I would just end with, there's many things that we're going to talk about. I think that we've launched it in a way where we're hitting main issues that are concerning, and also some that make all the sense in the world. With the blue and green economy issues going to be very much an economic driver as much as a clean air facilitator. We're the ocean state, so we're on the ocean, so we're impacted by the climate issues that we're dealing with, and we also can take full advantage of that. So you're going to see many from affordable housing, or from right now we're talking about homeless issues, all the way to fair market housing and everything in between that. And where does that fall in the state? You're going to hear that there's in the report about the K through 12 issues, public education, along with our universities, and then also talking about the healthcare issues that are important to all of us, along with behavioral health issues. And then we want to use I think it's $1.1 billion federal dollars and recovery dollars. We want to use those dollars as a launch pad into the next decade. And that's the idea, is to use those dollars intelligently to get us into a spot where we're starting to really create an economy that the state of Rhode Island. When was the last time that you saw, Rhode Island lead an economic recovery? Yeah, you get a little smile now, right? But we are. And so we're in this spot that we really can make some significant type of efforts. And so that's what tonight's about, is to really be thinking, projecting not only about what we're dealing with today, but also, thank you, but also what are we thinking about 5 years from now? What are we thinking about 10 years from now? So obviously we need to take care of things that are front and center today, but if we don't plan, then you don't know where you're going. And that's the idea, is to get your input to make that happen. So thank you so much for all being here tonight. With that, I'll hand it over to our Lieutenant Governor, Sabina Matos, who's been down here more than once, I'm sure.
I know.
Okay, here you go. Here's Sabina.
Thank you. Good evening. Actually, Caswell and the leader has been amazing. They welcome me back here in Westerly all the time, so I'm glad to be back here. Thank you. So I just want to give you some of the information about why we're here. We heard the governor giving us an introduction. We want to make sure to let you know that what the governor and I put out is a working document, and it's not finished until we hear from all of you. And that's why we're here. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your input and your feedback. I also want to make sure that you know that how we got here. We got here, we developed this draft document based on 13 conversations that we had via Zoom in hearing from different stakeholders. We brought some experts that locally and nationally that spoke, and we heard also from different experts here in Rhode Island. And that's how we developed this plan. As the governor said, the Secretary Pryor and I were co-hosting most of this conversation, of the 13 conversation, and we're getting to the point in which we think we can have a TV show eventually. So if this politics thing doesn't work, we'll end up going on TV, right? Yeah. Also want to tell you that these conversations are for us to gather inputs from all of you. Want to hear your feedback. What are the things that are missing? What we got right, what we didn't get right? What are the things that you think we didn't go deep enough on? Let us know. We want to hear from you. You can watch the conversation, the 13 conversations we had. They are available on the website, which is rhodeisland2030.com. I also want to make sure to acknowledge the URI Research Foundation, who worked really hard to make sure that we get this draft together. I believe that the Economic Department Chair, Lynn Malloy, he may be in the room. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for all your hard work. Also, I just want to make sure that if you have not read the document also, you can go to the website, rhodeisland2030.com, and you're going to have access to the document there. The handouts that you have has a QR code in there that you can scan that will take you directly also to the document in the website. So make sure that you take a look at that. And also, there is an online form. Also, you can go do it by using the QR code. It will take you to an online form. If you, but by any reason, don't feel like you want to give your feedback here, you want to do it more privately, feel free to go online and give us your feedback. If you want to do it once you get home, after you hear the conversations here today, we want to hear from you. Finally, a few things that I want to say is that this is a process that we're going through. And as we said earlier, this process is not completed until we hear from you. Honestly, we truly want to hear your opinion. How do you think that this state is going to be better 10 years from now? What are the things that you think are missing from the plan that we put out? So please give us your feedback. Also, just want to remind everyone that we're going to have a brief slide presentation. It's not going to be too long before we go into breakout sections, and then we hear the report back from everyone and want to hear your feedback. Before I go any further, I also would like to mention that we're going to have a Spanish translation. If anyone needs the Spanish translation, it's available also here. Si alguien necesita interpretación al español, tenemos la interpretación disponible también. Por favor, vea a algunos de los miembros del equipo y ellos le darán el acceso a la información de cómo puede recibir la interpretación. So with that, I'm just going to bring over Secretary of Commerce, Stephen Pryor, and he's going to give us more details about how the night's going to process them.
Thank you, Governor and Lieutenant Governor. Very much appreciated. Once again, thank you for bringing us together and for guiding us through this whole process. So you've already gotten the feel for it, but what we're going to do is we're going to, with cabinet officials from the McKee administration, review some of the topics that are among the 10 in the big report, the 50-plus page report. If you want to pull it up while we're talking, you heard the Lieutenant Governor reference it. The QR code will get you the report on your phone. And the one-pager that you received when you came in has the topics outlined. Does anyone need one of these, by the way? Does anyone need a sheet? A couple over there. So Brian and Ben, if you would help, and Liam, thank you so much for diving in that way. Keep your hands up for just one more moment if you need one. Okay, great. There is the availability on a continuing basis of our website, ri2030.com, ri2030.com. You could put in a comment right now on that website. There's a way to put a comment in for us to digest it now, later, so feel free to do that. This process doesn't stop with tonight's in-person session. We do have the 10 subject areas broken down into a smaller handful around the room. We're going to get into that. So that what we're going to do is break up into these subject areas and have smaller conversations so that every voice can be heard. We're going to use sticky notes, the yellow sticky notes, to write ideas down if that's the way you want to bring your idea forward. We're also going to just talk to each other in the different parts of this room. And then we're going to, after we break up into these different sections, we're going to come back together and hear reporting out. And then if any point has been missed, something that you've wanted to say, that point that has not been made this evening, we're going to do that too. So here are the topic areas displayed on the screen, and you have that on your sheets. Let's go to the next slide. So we're going to go to housing as our first topic area. And right before I do that, I do want to say a couple more thank yous. We wanted to dive right in, but now we're in the midst. We want to thank the United Theater. Lisa Utman-Randall has gotten us off the ground here. We're grateful to Lisa for helping to launch the United Theater. The governor already praised it with justification. What an asset for Westerly and for our entire state. Rhode Island Commerce was proud to be an investor, one of many, that participated over $200,000 in investment in this facility. We're proud of that, but we have to, every time we're here, thank Chuck Royce for his philanthropy in making it happen. And Lisa, thank you again for your leadership. So with having said that, I'm gonna jump to the housing official who's right here in the room, Deputy Director of Rhode Island Housing, James Comer. He's gonna review in brief form this first one, and then we're gonna go on to other cabinet officials. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. As the Secretary said, thank you, Mr. Secretary. I'm James Comer, Deputy Director of Rhode Island Housing. First, I just want to thank the person in the back, whoever applauded when the governor said affordable housing. You're my people. So we're going to lead off with, to me, which is the most personal goal, which is prioritizing housing. Our goal with this plan is to, by the next decade, that the state of Rhode Island will have a growing and ever-improving housing stock, affordable and accessible, and meets the needs of all Rhode Islanders. That's going to happen in a number of different ways. It's going to happen by increased investment in housing across all aspects of the income spectrum. It's going to happen by preserving and expanding affordable housing throughout the state. And it's going to happen by us making sure that Rhode Island Housing's housing stock is healthy and provides healthy homes for our children. As we talked about this plan throughout the state, we've received some fantastic feedback, and it's greatly informed what's here in the document. What we've heard from the people of Rhode Island, that housing affordability is a statewide challenge across all income, age, and racial groups, but especially for low, moderate income households, and that households of color are disproportionately impacted. We've also heard that housing supply has consistently fallen short of demand, resulting from a range of barriers: financing challenges, workforce challenges, local planning and zoning challenges. And most significantly, we know that specific housing challenges face Rhode Island, our state. That they include homelessness, inadequate senior housing, an aging housing stock, and inequity in home ownership rates across racial lines. So these are really the key takeaways we've had from all of you folks. I hope to learn more tonight. We'll be in the back corner there later on for a small group breakout to discuss this more in depth. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Thanks very much. Such a crucial topic area, and thank you for kicking us off with it. And now, climate, with our Department of Environmental Management Director, Terry Gray. Director Gray.
Thank you, Secretary Pryor. Welcome everybody tonight. I think we'll have an excellent dialogue about climate change. One of the big priorities that came through loud and clear in the RI 2030 dialogue was that Rhode Island has to be prepared to take on climate change. This was reinforced by a landmark bill that the General Assembly passed and Governor McKee signed back in April called the Act on Climate. And what the Act on Climate really did was convey the urgency that we have to not only reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, but get Rhode Island prepared for the impacts of climate change that are coming, no matter what we do. So tonight's discussion is really going to be to solicit ideas on how we can best do that. Some of the things that we've heard already are that climate change policies in Rhode Island have to be fair and benefit all our residents. So we can't have winners and losers. We really have to look at the entire population and really make sure that everybody shares in the benefits of our policies. I mean, this one should hit close to home. It seems like Westerly is always on the front line of some of these severe storm events that we deal with. But as a coastal state, we need to be prepared for flooding, rising seas, and increased storms that are going to come from climate change. For some of you that got a chance to get out earlier this week, we experienced what are known as king tides, which are tides that, because of the pull of the moon and the alignment and everything else, are about 1.5 feet higher than a normal high tide in Rhode Island. Well, in a few years, that's going to be a normal high tide in Rhode Island. And the areas that were flooded by those king tides are going to be flooded twice a day. And the king tide will be 1.5 feet on top of that. So we have to be prepared for that. And we have to look at our infrastructure and the way we can protect ourselves from those kind of impacts. And finally, there's an opportunity here. Rhode Island is well positioned to take advantage of really looking at our response to climate change and taking advantage of the opportunities that come from being a national leader in things like our offshore wind and the fair and reasonable placement of the offshore wind facilities that we're all considering right now. We can look at the opportunities that come up from addressing climate change as a coastal community, right? We can set the example. We can lead by example in a lot of ways here. And then we can look at aquaculture. Aquaculture is really a way to look at the response to our changing fish populations, our changing seas, and really be prepared to deal with that. Some of the targets and goals that are in that Act on Climate and things we need to do are really reduce our emissions in 3 areas. One is in energy and really looking at renewable energy like offshore wind, looking at our transportation sector and working across government to really come up with opportunities for clean transportation. And finally, to look at our heating sector. Right, all our buildings, our homes, a lot of them are heated by natural gas or oil. And look at different opportunities where maybe we can do that better and more efficiently. So we're looking for your ideas tonight. We're excited to have your input, and we'll be in the back corner over there looking for your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Gray. There are a lot of administration officials who are in the room to make sure we hear from you, and thank you, Governor, for making that possible. And I want to recognize Mike Tondra of our Office of Housing and Community Development, Chief of Staff in Commerce, Hannah Moore, Ben Mays and Brian Hodge from Commerce, and our own Commerce Corporation President, Jesse Saglio, is right here. He's also a stakeholder in Westerly. He'll maybe tell us about that. President Saglio, you're up.
Thank you, Secretary Pryor. Good to see you all. How many folks here own a small business? How many folks here work in a small business? How many folks here know somebody that owns or works in a small business? You get my point. I think that's everybody. I don't think we've missed anybody. Small business is the lifeline of the state's economy. It is what puts food on the plate of all of our residents every day for more than half of our residents, the majority of our residents. Small business is incredibly important. I feel strongly about it. As Secretary Pryor mentioned, I am myself a small business owner. I've owned a business in this town just down the street for north of 5 years now. So there are a lot of things that we learned during the pandemic. We were front line. Tremendous efforts were put in by the entire administration to try and help a desperate situation. We know our most vulnerable businesses are those that were affected most severely. Our retail, our restaurants and hospitality, our tourism businesses were literally shut down. The damage was severe, but with that is an opportunity to streamline the way we do business as a state, the way we interact with our businesses, the way that we support our small businesses and resource them. So all of those things are what we need to focus on. What we need are your ideas. What are the ways to do that? How can we make it easier? Every single day, the small business owner goes to their store, goes to their place of business. They're the janitor, they're the head of sales, they're the CEO, they may be the cashier, they're the head of marketing, literally wearing all those hats. So how do we think about ways to make that easier, more effective, more efficient? How do we figure out ways to support our underserved communities? As we know, small business ownership is the most surefire path to long-term prosperity. Ownership, at the end of the day, ownership is what brings people from poverty into affluence and success. So all of these things are important. These are things we want to talk to you about. We want to understand your thoughts on how do we make the regulatory process better, more streamlined? How do we increase access to capital? How do we support our small businesses with programming? How do we build capacity to lift them all up? As we know, our economy is more than half small business. Look forward to hearing all your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Jesse, for your comments and for all of your work. Infrastructure and Transportation Director Alviti. I've even below his mask, I see a smile on his face, given that the infrastructure bill finally passed. But Director Alviti, if you would take the floor. Thank you for your partnership through many things, sir.
Hi, everyone. Governor, thanks for getting us all here together. Westerly is one of my favorite cities to come and visit, mainly because of your food, your art, the culture in the city and the history of the city, and the food. Look, our goals for transportation are very simple, and I think they're shared by all of you. Our goal in the 2030 plan is to create a 21st century transportation system here in Rhode Island that improves the quality of life for all of you, connects you together to each other better in Rhode Island, but also connects us regionally to other economic centers in Boston in particular, New York, Connecticut, and to provide kind of a economic driver to our state that comes out of having a good transportation infrastructure. We see this happening. We're building a new train station in Pawtucket in Central Falls. And already, the train station isn't even built yet, but already we're seeing economic development take place that in an area around the train station that languished for years. It's this kind of connection between transportation and economic development that's very important to our state. How are we going to do it? Well, historically in Rhode Island, we've underinvested in transportation. We receive about 80% of our transportation improvement and maintenance and operation funds from the federal government. That requires us to put about $1 for every dollar that they put in. But it's always been a challenge here in Rhode Island for Rhode Island to provide enough money to be able to support that $4 return that we get from the federal government. So we need to create ways in which we can invest more and wiser and better in transportation infrastructure to be able to garner more of those federal funds. The grants that you all heard were approved by the federal government last week, stand to bring an additional $100 million a year for at least the next 5 years. And beyond that, an additional $50 million a year. But all of that money from the federal government has to be matched by state funds. So that's always a challenge for us. That's always an area that has been underinvested here in Rhode Island. So we need to think more broadly about infrastructure and how various parts of infrastructure are connected transit connected to trains, trains connected to highways, highways and bike and ped and other active transportation systems all connected, working together. There's a lot of regional opportunity. We've been speaking with the City of Boston, the MBTA, to create better, faster, more frequent service between Providence and Boston, to be able to foster a economic development potential that exists between the two cities, and to improve broadband. The recent bill that passed Congress creates substantial funding for the improvement of broadband. We in Rhode Island are well poised for growing the broadband system here in Rhode Island, and this will give us an opportunity to do that.
Thank you, Director Alviti. Health and wellness is another key area, and we're pleased that the Office of the Health Insurance Commissioner is represented by the Commissioner, Patrick Teig. Commissioner, please come on up.
Thank you so much, Secretary Pryor and Governor McKee, Lieutenant Governor Math. Thank you very much for having me here tonight. It's a privilege to be here with all my cabinet colleagues and with all of you. So in the Rhode Island 2030 plan for public health and wellness, our goal here, as you see, is that by the next decade, Rhode Island's healthcare system will really have two hallmarks: affordability and accessibility. And we believe that we can do both of those goals together so that we can have a system that maximizes the health outcomes for Rhode Islanders. And we think the key parts of that are going to be emphasizing preventative care and wellness, ensuring that we address social determinants of health. Those are the upstream qualities that affect the health of all of us ultimately, as well as supporting our healthcare providers and allowing them to have a more diverse workforce to deliver care in a culturally competent way. And then finally, that we can see health disparities, the outcomes that we see that are disparate by race and other characteristics, that we see those eliminate so that everyone has access to an equitable healthcare system and therefore has equitable healthcare outcomes. And so what we heard from you during the Rhode Island 2030 planning process that led us to draw up this particular goal were several things that I think are really important to flag here tonight as we begin on our dialogue. The first is that the pandemic that we all continue to actually live through, we see that has exposed, right, some of the deep failings and deep challenges in our healthcare system. And there's a large number of those. That includes the behavioral health crisis that we continue to see occurring that the pandemic has made worse. We see unequal outcomes. We see challenges with provider solvency, particularly for our primary care and pediatric providers. But we also see the tremendous opportunities that actually exist and that are present in our healthcare system. And some examples of those are the growth in telemedicine that makes healthcare much more accessible than it was in the past. Governor McKee signed an incredibly important bill last legislative session to permanently expand telemedicine access for all Rhode Islanders. And so we think that based on this, there really is an opportunity to address the challenges that our healthcare system is ultimately facing, but also build on the strengths that we've seen emerge during the pandemic period. So I look forward to having that dialogue with all of you here tonight, and I thank you very much for devoting your time. Thanks so much.
I want to recognize another administration official. Pastor Chris is here with us. Thank you so much for being here, Pastor. In addition, we are recognizing that in order to carry out this draft plan, once it evolves and it crystallizes and we're ready to roll, we need capacity within state government. We need to make sure that we have a strong state government that's capable of carrying it out. So we have, to discuss the state government component of the draft plan, Department of Administration Director Jim Thorson, who was involved with the 2030 process at its inception and at every step along the way. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Stefan. Hello, everybody. My name's Jim Thorson, Director of the Department of Administration, and you see there's no bullet points here. So you can tell I didn't do the presentation, but it's not because I don't have anything to say. I do have something to say, but I will be brief. And I don't think it's boastful to say that without the Department of Administration, none of this is possible. Why is that? It's because so it's because we provide the HR, the budgeting, the purchasing, the accounts and control for accountability, and the IT services. Now, over the last several years, there has been not enough investment in this, and we really haven't kept pace to keep our systems modern. And I think if you talk to any state employee, they might tell you that there are some real challenges associated with some of the systems that we have in place. For example, handwritten time and attendance sheets that are processed for some 13,000 employees. It's just one example. So this is kind of like the plumbing. People don't want to talk about it unless it backs up, but I can assure you that all of the services that you're looking for that are exciting, that are positive for our state and build us towards 2030 are not possible without modernizing our government and being able to have transparency and accountability, more services online, updating our system so that we can actually tell you how many employees we have in less than a week, and transparency and accountability. So I'm going to be talking about some of these issues right over there in just a few minutes. And I know I'm last, so I won't take any more time, but I just wanted to point out that I think it's wonderful that you're involved, and we'd love to hear from you. So I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that I'm here too. Thank you.
All right. So reminder that you can send in information to us, opinions, comments, questions at ri2030.com, and there's an example of the input form that I referenced earlier. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we are going to go ahead and break up into these areas. If administration officials who are facilitating, please go ahead to your sections right now, if you would. We really appreciate it. The governor, lieutenant governor, and others of us are going to be circulating, so please go ahead and as members of the public participating in this event, you can choose any area you wish to provide your comment. Topic area 1 is economic growth, small business, workforce development, and post-secondary education. Jesse Saglio is holding up his hand, and Jesse is headed to which spot? With Doris, right over there. Thank you, Doris. So economic growth, workforce development, small business, higher education. Topic area 1. Topic area 2 is housing. Topic area, James Comer, where are you, sir? James Comer is in the back, in that corner where I'm pointing, waving his hand. Bye, Pastor Chris. Housing, please head over there with Tori. Tori Scott, thank you. Topic area 3, Commissioner Teig, public health and wellness, children, families, and early education, and K-12 education. Public health, wellness, children, families, and early ed, and K-12 education. Topic area 3, where are you, Commissioner Teig? There you are, right in the back. Commissioner Teig for children, youth, families, education. Topic area 4, climate, as well as infrastructure and transportation, obviously interrelated. Directors Gray and Alviti, where are you, gentlemen? In that corner back there, along with Hannah Moore. So thank you. And topic area 5, Director Thorson for government, and all other topics. All other topics to Director Thorson. You heard him express it. Across government, DOA supports and guides. So along with Patrick McGrath, Director Thorson, Area 5, we're going to take about 20 minutes to write on the sticky notes and to discuss, and then we're going to report out when we return to the center and rejoin in our seats. Go ahead and proceed to your sections wherever you're interested. Thank you very, very much. About 20 minutes of discussion at this time. Thank you very much.